Hi guys, so today I will be having another Bible study video because I have Bible study with my friends on Tuesday, and so now I have topics to talk about every Tuesday, and I will try to upload every Tuesday. Videos usually fully actually upload to the channel Wednesday. Also for fall I have a pumpkin spice candle lit. Smells amazing. Anyway, just wanted to show you that. So yeah, let's get started. So we went through a couple different topics and verses, the fruits and stuff, but I feel like I've talked about that before. And one of the verses and topics that I've not really talked about before, that I don't think I've talked about before, is I've kind of talked about something like it, but basically controlling your anger, and controlling your actions and thinking before you do or say something. And I have one verse for this, and I can go off saying multiple different things just from this one verse. James 3:1-4. Here we go. Control the tongue. My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. For in many things we offend all. If any man offended not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body. Behold, we put bits in the horses' mouths, that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. Behold also the ships, which, though they be so great, and are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth. Now, that's kind of confusing from the King James Version, but at Bible study, my friends have the more understanding biblical versions, and whenever I read my Bible, I read it on my phone in the New Translation Version so I can understand it better. But basically, when it says in the 3rd and 4th verse, it's basically describing how such a tiny person controls, a ship, or controls a horse, which are more massive than them, but yet they still control it, and the ship and the horse, obeys them, because of how they are controlled. Now, what this is doing is setting a metaphor comparing, the ships and the horse to your tongue and the way that you control your tongue. Now, if someone controls a ship and one movement they do sinks the ship, it's one action that you do with your tongue or your mind or your hands or actions or anything can make your whole ship sink, can make all your fruits fall off of your branch of goodness that you've been building and that God has been building for you. And the point of this is that if you forgot which verse it was, but it was saying not to be easily angered, and the point is, if you let yourself lose control and be easily angered and impatient, then your ship will sink. And how you need to take control of your tongue and your actions so that your ship does not sink and so that it can flow. And how it is saying a tiny person can be controlling a huge massive ship, it is saying how you and your tiny action can be controlling more. And let me find an example to use for this. Is like cyberbullying. I just thought of this because I recently watched the Unknown Catfish documentary on Netflix. Crazy, by the way. And how like one tiny action can, like, you know, thinking of like Aubrey Wyatt and all that stuff, is like how one tiny, well, it wasn't tiny by any means, but how things that could be tiny to you and small actions that you make can affect your or someone else's life heavily, to the point where it is bad, and to the point where something like that happens. And not just Aubrey Wyatt, but it has happened to multiple people, and not even just cases like that, but cases like, you know, with like alcohol, you know, if you have a tiny sip, then you can get addicted and it can affect your whole life. How maybe like drunk driving, you know, like if you have a little sip and then get into the car, and what if you accidentally like hurt, you know, a whole like family or something because you get into an accident, or you hurt yourself because you get into an accident. It's saying that all your actions or words, because words mean a lot too, can truly heavily affect something that happens in life. And that is why you have to be patient, and you have to try to be calm, and you have to control your tongue and control your actions. Now, at Bible study, every week we do a challenge. This week's challenge for everyone was, before like you go on your phone or anything when you first wake up, just pray and thank God, and, you know, don't go straight to something that the world has created, and try not to distance yourself from God in that way, and go to Him first and think about Him first. And so we did that this week, last week. And this week's challenge is to think before you do things, and to not be easily angered, be patient. So there's that. And another topic that I really just want to quickly touch on, because I saw a TikTok about it, and I think that it is one of the easiest ways that I've ever understood someone like describing this. And this kind of doesn't really have anything to do with what we were talking about, but I just really want to bring it up because the video so far is kind of short and I want to make it longer. And I want you guys to hear this too. So many people have talked about, you know, not seeing signs from God when they ask for it, and not seeing Him in things, and not hearing Him, not seeing Him, you know. And this girl on TikTok described how, you know, if your mind, like the example she used, I'm gonna use it too, is how if your mind, like, you really want to buy a Jeep, you know, and if you really, really want to buy a Jeep, then your mind is gonna kind of pick out a Jeep when you see it, like, if that's all you're thinking about, you know, like, you're gonna see, like, feel like you see more Jeeps on the road, and at car shops, and dealerships, and online, and all that type of stuff, because you're gonna be kind of looking for that. And, so what the girl described is, if you're that way with God, if you are always trying to look for God and searching for God, then you will see Him. Because that's your sign. That is what you need to do to be able to see His signs and to be able to see God, is you need to be looking for Him. You need to be trying to pick Him out of everything that you see. And you need to have Him always in your mind and be focused on Him, because if you are that way, then you will see Him, and you will start seeing Him and signs and things that He does a lot more often. So that was really beautiful. Want to share that, and I'm gonna start doing that too. And I also want to encourage you guys. Sorry, there's a train. But I also want to encourage you guys to do the challenges every week with me, that my Bible study group does. And this week, you can start by doing the challenge, think before you do things and say things, and control your tongue easily, not be easily angered. And the thing that God also says is that, you have a right to be angry about something, but don't let that cause you to sin. Don't let that cause you to curse. Don't let that cause you to have a bad mouth. Don't let that cause you to do something that you can't take back. And don't cause that to have you do a bad action. So if you in your mind you're angry, but if you don't do anything about it and you control your tongue and control your actions, that is exactly all that God is asking for, is to learn to be more patient and controlling of your actions and words, because it can affect a lot more in life than you think. And it can have the butterfly effect, and it can hurt you or someone else in your life and someone else's life. Because if we don't think about the things we do before we do them, then we don't think about the consequences that will happen after them. And it can affect life in so many ways. So the thing that I challenge you to do this week, same thing that I'm challenging myself to do this week, is to control yourself. So thanks for watching this week's video. Love you guys.